This is Advance Notice with your host, Parks and ynoT.
Well, we are back again. It has been a while. It is season 42, a whole season's worth of a break. I'm Parks, and this is ynoT.
Hey guys, I'm ynoT.
Well, you know, it never gets easier doing those intros, I'll be honest. And you'll have many more awkward intros to look forward to, especially because we are back for season 42.
That's it, just many more.
Yeah,
so many
more.
We have had a whole season though. Yeah, you're right, a whole season, and then an
Whole
off season
season.
now that we've gone through.
Yeah, well, we took the small break, and now we're back, and I think it deserves some time to talk about the podcast a little bit. We gotta kind of intro you back into this because you might not have seen the first season, which was season 40 was worth. We took that break to kind of refocus on what we were gonna do, and yeah, so we're back here for season 2 of Advanced Notice. Advanced Notice, of course, covering as much news as possible in advanced, in ECL, and basically anything NA that we can think of. So there's going to be a lot coming forward with that, and I mean it's a huge update now because the season is about to start in advanced. So there's plenty to cover.
Yeah, usually we'll be throwing in a lot of things happening not around only the North American scene, but around just the Counter-Strike scene in general when things change. Obviously, around not only rosters, but players themselves and their life situations and things going on that maybe you just need to fill yourself back in on in case you missed the drama or something like that, which we do have just a little bit of regarding roster changes. But before we get to that, we do have a lot to go through in terms of the rosters that have changed in the offseason moving into season 42. So dude, how many? Like, I think maybe
Hold
like
on to your
20
butts.
teams here.
Hold on to your butts.
Hold on
Definitely.
to them. Yes, very tightly even.
We wanted to do rapid fire, and then we decided when we looked at all the rosters, we're like, no, some of these.
This is the episode.
This is the episode now. No, there's not going to be anything else. It is just going to be straight up roster shuffle mania coming through. And I mean, we have. I guess the biggest thing to talk about at the start is some newer squads coming in, maybe some newer orgs coming into the scene as well. There's a few of those. And of course, you just have the tried and true, like we're going to move a few players, keep the core. And that kind of stuff is going to happen. We also have some teams dying, which is a mainstay in NA, of course.
Of course.
They get poached to fuck and they're gone. So yeah, I guess without further ado, we should start going down the roster shuffle list here.
Yeah.
We've got the first one listed. They are a new org in the scene. Shout out to Kari. It is Kari Esports coming forward here. They did remove Cats for K2. I don't know the original roster that comes from.
Yeah, so Kari, not quite sure how it's pronounced. They were a core of 4 players who had came through from last season, being Tribute, PLX2, Merkin, and Kermi. Kermi being, I think, the newest addition to that core, and then K2 now, obviously, like we had mentioned, taking the place of Kates, I believe, or Cats, or however it's pronounced, which is kind of like, I don't want to say a bad move. I think it's just very sideways in the sense that it won't really throw them into the next echelon of Counter-Strike instantly, but it should be the change that they need should they have made it like with purpose. Like, if they actually had a reason to replace that player behind the scenes or felt like they needed something to shake up, maybe this is the change of pace they need. But I think K2 is a good enough player, personally, having seen him before.
Listen, it's one of those things. It's we have not seen anything from these squads really in a while, so it becomes one of those things we look at and we go,
yeah,
I don't really know what the fuck is happening, but we're here, so might as well say something about it. And I mean, that's all you can say. Shout out to Kari for
orging him up.
Yeah, that's really the highlight of that is she runs her own org, even if it's just as a meme. It's enough for me, man. It's org is an org, yeah, for sure.
And K2 is like a solid enough player that I think he could still improve just the amount that he needs to. But he's been in the same like core of players for so long before this team, so I'm personally kind of excited to see if he has what it takes to make his way into this team comfortably.
All right, so that's Kari Esports. We're gonna move on now to the recently relegated Villainous Union. They were under UIU at the time. They went, ex UIU. They didn't really get any payment from that kind of situation, so they dropped. They removed Cameron and Drew, and they have brought on Zeb and Shutout instead.
Yes.
You got anything for me on this one?
Yeah, kind of, sort of. I saw a couple of those players at LAN recently, actually. I mean, I'm repping it right now. We got that flag on. It was
Mr. I casted the frag.
Yeah, that's me now, everybody. I'm the one who did it. It was me. That's a team that I think has potential. I definitely think they do, having seen them on LAN with Shutout. I don't know if Zeb was there with them or not. But with my recollection, they had at minimum all 4 of the players who were playing in this current team on LAN. So they've definitely got a little bit of that team cohesion now already built up, having done that. So that's something that bodes well for them moving into the season practice-wise. But other than that, Zeb is a player who I've seen once or twice in other rosters before. He's had his moments, and I don't think he's really been given a full opportunity in a team that really fits him well enough, per se. And he's a pretty young player, just about 20 years old now, having been in, I think, previously before this team, he was playing in what was now the Davenport D2 University spot, or what that team has taken up since they got their D2 team, at least. So having
Yeah.
made his way now into this team, I'm pretty excited to see if he can kind of hunker down and really show what he's got. Because he was
Yeah,
with that
I
team
mean,
for a long time, by the way,
yeah,
like a very long
it's
time.
one of those. I guess these initial ones are a lot of just like the rosters needed some form of shakeup, so that's what they're
Mhm.
doing now, and they're finding kind of a new place. And of course, this villainous Union squad as a whole, like they did qualify for ECL at some point, so there's going to be that high aspiration
Right.
point. So when they go out and look for a player, they're not only kind of looking just for that, they're not just looking for the certain, uh party piece, I guess I would say, like
Right.
this, like a complementary piece. They're looking for somebody who can make an impact, help them push to get back up into that ECL, because that's the goal, right? For a lot of these teams, is push for playoffs, push for an ECL relegation spot, push to be promoted automatically. It's one of those things.
And the moves aren't egregious either. It's not like they're blowing up their roster or changing their coaching staff on top of it. I mean, they're changing out 2 players with 1 player that they're relatively familiar with already and somebody who might be a little bit new to them. But even, like you said, even still, it's a little bit of a shakeup. And maybe that's what they need. That could be something that takes them across the line soon. So I'm excited to see that one. But actually, what I'm a little more excited to see and how it pans out is Victorum. Victorum now removing 3 players from their roster from the previous season, keeping Soul Goat and Isaac, and taking on Nugin or New. I'm not sure how that's pronounced.
Newen,
That's always
Newen,
Newen. Okay,
I believe so. Yeah.
and then Atomic and Drew. A basically new team entirely based on these players that they're adding from different squads across the advanced season last season and previously of ECL Atomic. I don't know. I can't speak on the other two's behalf and whether or not they've been there before, but either way, it's great to see that they're taking in not only some old but some new and trying to put something together, which Atomic's been doing for a while now.
Yeah, I think that's one of the most interesting things with this Victorum squad, is because even before this one, they were the main Brazen squad before Brazen became a brand up in ECL when they picked up. I want to say it was the third Impact squad. They picked up that third Impact spot essentially, and
Right.
that
Sure.
became Brazen. So Victorum is now. Yeah, it all gets lost on me
Yeah.
after so many seasons. But no, so Brazen were unfortunately not able to hold both the squads together. Victorum are now, they're orgless, they're looking for team. But one of the highlights from the squad has always been just like they're always barely in the playoff picture, but they always do something where they make some kind of a run, even if it's lower bracket. This time they were, they had a bit more time up in the upper bracket before facing off against One Tap. And that became a big thing, because now you're looking at this and you're going, okay, are they just going to run it back again next season? Is it going to be maybe a 1-player switch? No, they went full in this time with the 3 new players. And Atomic is one of those guys that has the pedigree to be in playoffs, and he has been consistently in playoffs. He deserves to be in ECL in his mind. So that's where you look at that and you go, okay, they're focusing in on that. They're focusing in on, once we make it to playoffs. It's not if we're going to make it to playoffs right now. It's going to be once we make it playoffs. We need to make a deep run, at least to get into that relegation picture, because that's their goal, right? They just want to get a chance up into ECL.
Yeah, I completely agree. And that's really all you can say about the team, considering they have no real history. They've got nothing to go off of previously other than their own individual accomplishments, achievements, and pedigrees as individuals. So, I mean, I hope to see them do well. I hope to see them show us something that we haven't seen from a roster like that in quite some time. But speaking of Limitless, it's ex Limitless where Atomic comes from, and now he moves on to this team. And Limitless have picked up a new team entirely. It's going to be Maxwell, JBA, and Scar, the former team, or core, excuse me, of Team X13, plus Stamina and Cameron, who we spoke about earlier on, leaving from Villainous Union. So that team is actually a little bit more interesting, considering that they get Stamina off of Strife, which is quite a decent pickup. As I believe, I can only assume they're in-game leader.
I mean, you'd hope so. That's one of the most interesting things, I guess, when you look at this. You go, so something wasn't working on Strife for sure, and he was going to make his own project. He drops down to advanced, but his level of commitment to the squad should hopefully bounce them back into a playoff picture, bounce them into that chance to get into ECL again. And we
Yeah.
know Stamina is one of those up and coming IGLs that everybody's kind of keeping their eye on. I mean, you have to think about it. Strife brought in Fidgets. I think that's how you say it.
That's
To
Fates, I
Fets.
think.
Yeah,
Something like that.
they brought in an Estonian, an international player,
Yeah,
and
true.
that's not really common at this level, especially considering the downturn in teams and teams and big organizations kind of putting money into the scene. So bringing that kind of commitment over is huge. And now all of a sudden, your IGL has dropped down. He's going to play back with a different core that hasn't really ever gotten the success that some people think they deserved. And they play really well, but sometimes it comes to those big lineup, big matches, and they don't show, and that becomes an unfortunate thing. So hopefully, Stamina coming in really helps with that.
Yeah, I hope so too. It's something that can pull together a team of already existing players and a new fifth into one cohesive unit that could be Limitless's break back up to that top level into ECL, even perhaps from their playoff season last time around. So, I mean, hopefully for them, they've made the right choice. It only has the good pieces, right? Like on paper, this team makes a lot of sense individually, and on paper, it makes a lot of sense as an organization investment wise. So, they really did get their money's worth from what they had going for them last season. For my money, because on paper, again, I think this is probably slightly better in terms of all around. Probably. Hopefully.
Probably, maybe, we don't know.
Potentially.
We're
Yeah.
saying things.
Yet to see.
Yet to see. It's Schrodinger's roster.
Yes.
They could be really good, or they could just be dead inside that box.
They could be dead inside that box.
That's one of my favorite scenes from Futurama. That's a little aside,
That's
but
a good show.
it's a good show.
I like
Speaking of will they, won't they? Davenport having two teams. We kind of mentioned this a little bit earlier with a few of the other rosters. It's interesting to see from them just because the success the D1 Davenport roster is going to have in the next coming months, the next coming seasons, because they're
Right.
getting a lot of high-end talent coming forward. Um, Especially considering the name. When you hear the name Sonic, you go, okay, that's a buzzword. That they have a former pro joining
He's
their
actually not
university.
joining this season.
I know he's not joining this season, but
Okay.
he's coming, and that's one of those things that you look at and you go, that's an interesting thing to look at. But even so, like, their roster still is pretty strong, at least in the D1 team. I haven't really looked at the D2 team at all.
Yeah, the D2 team is taking on Arcade and Bebo. Arcade, I think, formerly of Davenport already, having not been with them last season. I'm pretty sure he already played with the Davenport team at one point or another, whether it be on the lower team or the main team. I think it was the main team. But either way, finding those two players is pretty solid, and they have an Alper who has potential at the top of main and already has played at that level, but we need to see him actually show up. I know him somewhat personally. Rift, very talented individual from what I've seen. He just needs to show up in the big matches, really. Like, it's nothing other than just experience at this stage. I mean, he's hitting the shots and he shows that he can at pretty much any level. It's just a matter of doing it consistently enough against Alpers that'll probably put you in your place for a lot of the time, considering a lot of the levels, a lot of the Alpers at this level are kind of nuts. So the team, I would say, that they're putting together for Advanced probably isn't ready for Advanced, in my opinion, at least not yet. And I think that this season of Advanced might get them ready for it in the middle, perhaps. So it's just a matter of, towards the middle of the season, have they put together enough of a squad to be able to mentally keep themselves together for the rest of the season to keep them from being relegated? That's really all it is at this stage.
Yeah, so is it fair to say then that that D2 Davenport team is looking just to try and survive their first season of Advance, kind of like how teams survive their first season of ECL?
Yeah, I would probably say as much. Also, considering the fact that they haven't actually played together as a core before, as far as I'm aware, the only players who might have been familiar with one another are Bebo Arcade and Rift in Arcade, unless Bebo and Rift have some sort of connection as well. So yeah, it's pretty much just survival at this point, and not even survival in the sense of like it's literally just don't get relegated. Not
Yeah,
even survival as like a team, because if they can't
yeah,
keep themselves mentally together as a team for this season, that bodes much worse than just not relegating. Like if they get relegated and are hopeful, that's fine. But if
yeah.
they're collapsing on the inside out,
There's
then
some problems.
yeah. So
That,
like
that's
I
that's
hope they
4 years
do.
of commitment that becomes an issue, I guess.
Yeah, and they're
When you look
like,
at that,
ooh,
oh, we made a bad decision.
was this
Time
the
to,
college?
yeah. Michigan, yeah,
Yeah.
Michigan Tech. You gonna sweep me off my feet? No,
Yeah.
I look at that and I go, okay, that's good. And I mean, I agree. You just got to survive, and I think that's one of the things that you look at the original Davenport roster that's now kind of, we're going to talk about them a little bit later. When their last season here, it was just make playoffs or maybe it wasn't even make playoffs. It was just kind of have a good season.
Yeah.
There was no expectation. It was just have a good season, and then all of a sudden now they're they're fighting tomorrow against Unjustified for a spot. So that's huge, right? I don't think there'll be much in the way of expectations for the D2 team. I guess it's just try not to get relegated. Keep yourself good.
Anything more than not getting relegated would be good. Like
Yeah,
objectively and subjectively very good. That's
there you
where
go.
I stand. So like I don't have anything where I'm like this is objectively bad because if they get
Yeah.
relegated, that isn't even bad, honestly. Because I didn't go into this thinking they were going to be world beaters. So I'd like to see
Yeah.
them do well.
Yeah, we want them to do well, but something might happen.
Right,
Um,
perhaps.
in a way, they're in control of their destiny. Ha 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 ha! Funny segue.
Nice.
We're gonna talk about in control next. This is an interesting one. They're taking the Valkyrie core, sorry, of Hunter, Zert, and Strider, and they're gonna add Talon and interestingly enough, ex Unjustified player Hitman to that squad. That I honestly I don't know what to think of this roster at all.
Yeah, I think Hitman's he was their in-game leader, wasn't he, for at least a time?
I have no
Unjustified?
idea. I have no idea.
I could be completely wrong about that, so don't quote me on it. But suspecting the fact that Hitman was the in-game leader at least in one point in time for that squad is a very big plus for this roster, in my opinion. As he steps down, probably was a little bit down on himself individually for the last season that he had played out, which wasn't incredible. You can't lie to him, and he'll probably tell you as well. He didn't play the greatest Counter Strike that he has in his life. His team was playing well enough, and he got them through to one point or another to make them all the way through the playoff bracket to a certain level. So I mean, great work. Now he finds himself dropping back down into advanced, and I commend him for it because this is a roster of, once again, a core of players who have the talent and the potential, and they add a fifth player who could just be that piece that takes them over the line, a difference maker.
I mean that's all you can ask for, really. I think
Yeah.
that season up in ECL will do him well in terms of experience and kind of what you can bring back down. It's one of those things of like when you're there's a few teams like this that kind of rubber band and are almost always in the playoff picture. They get close or maybe they do, but then they get relegated the next season. You're still getting a lot of experience by playing those upper echelon teams. And at the
Right.
end of the day, that's one of those things that you look at and you go, okay, what is my experience coming out of this? What have I learned personally that I can take and drive with into the next season and go, oh, okay, this is what I know I need to improve and everything like that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's one of those things. Um,
But
I mean,
before we move on, I don't know if you wanted to move
no,
on
no,
from
no, no. I
anything
want to keep
like that.
talking about them. Let's keep
Oh,
going.
okay. Let's finish what you were saying then. Go ahead.
No,
Okay.
I don't know what to see. I don't know what to say. I don't know. I'm interested in seeing what Hitman brings to the squad.
Yeah, I am too. And I'm also very interested to see how they figure out their AWP situation. Having had Nova in the former season, the Valkyrie core had a little bit of a struggle in the middle of it where they were removing players, figuring things out. They had Mexi at one point, another very talented player. And now, as they move into a sort of new stage of their team, figuring out not only the in-game leader role relative to who will be taking on that Hitman in my head at least, and then the AWP. I don't actually know who would be picking that up because it was Nova last time around, and unless Strider has moved his way into an op role or one of the other players have decided to pick it up, I'm not actually 100% sure of where that will lie. But I think at the end of the day that this in control lineup should at least be a step ahead of the Valkyrie team and then some. Even if they stick together for another season and change one more player out, I think that this team has potential not only in this season but the ones to come. Hopefully, though. Hopefully.
Yeah. So maybe this is just their initial like forget them getting they're not no longer a part of Valkyrie, forget that part, but maybe just as a roster they looked and they said, look, the last season did not work at all. We got off to a bad start and it never went anywhere. So now we're gonna bring in some more talent. We're gonna bring in maybe a higher ranking IGL, somebody who can maybe put us into a good structure that we can succeed in. And even if it doesn't work, then we have something to come back to and say, okay, maybe we do need an opper, or maybe our operating system is working, but the roles are kind of clashing. But they can at least come back to that and say, we have a strong 4, we can make it a stronger 5.
They
So
can assess
that's
what's wrong, kind of thing.
yeah.
Like they can be
Maybe
like,
there was
"Here's where
just
we are now." Yeah,
maybe there's just too many things wrong with last season. We need to move on, and
yeah.
that's what's gonna hit them.
Yeah, and Hitman being that level-headed new player into their team could be like the difference maker in mentality and figuring things out and fixing them as opposed to collapsing maybe unnecessarily even perhaps making the wrong decisions at the wrong time. I'm not saying that any of the decisions that they made were wrong even, but I'm pretty sure that they had fell under some hard times and things just weren't working out personality-wise, they weren't working out schedule-wise. Something inside that team was going wrong, and I'm pretty sure they had some sort of a drama towards the end where they just like it just wasn't working and they couldn't play or something. But either way, like that
Stuff hitting the
happens.
fan.
Yeah, and like hopefully that is something that's in the past because they found their three, and obviously if these three stuck around after that Valkyrie project, then something's right between them. Hitman brings them a piece, like I had said, that keeps them more grounded than any other. And then Talon is just a player who you can rely on to be at least some sort of a filler player to take up, maybe even, like I said, a difference maker role, a playmaker role. Something's not working at one side of the map. Maybe it could potentially be Talon to take that spot and filter in that what wasn't working in Valkyrie is something that he can adapt to and adjust to a little bit better than maybe the players they had previously did.
All
Hopefully.
right. Yeah, well, that's the new In Control lineup then. So we are going to move forward here. We spent quite a while talking about them,
That was a
which
good
is
one. I
this
like
is
that
good.
one.
It's a good one. There's a lot of question marks surrounding them, and now we'll have potentially have some answers. Speaking of question marks around a squad, Golden State Warriors is a former detonate core of Xen, Devil, and Monk. That also speaks very much like a big chillin' core from a few of many a season ago,
That as
and they're
well, yeah.
joined by Hans and LTC, who I know nothing about those two guys.
I actually don't either. To be completely honest with you, very few names on this list that I don't know. And as a matter of fact, I know all of them except for these two, actually.
Yeah.
So I don't really have a whole lot to say other than I know the three names that are here, and I know that they're good. They're really good, at least in terms of a core. As far as cores go, I would take that team. And these two players make their way in, and so long as the other three have faith in them, having brought them into their now core of three that they've revived, Zen having spent a season away, bringing himself back in, reintegrating, this could be something good and new. These could be two players that we need to keep our eyes on. And I mean, for the sake of this team, like I said, that had success before as a core in multiple teams previous, this is something that I could probably hopefully look up to as a new heavy hitter team. But if not, maybe it's just a season that, again, they needed to figure things out. Like I said, Zen's coming back in. He's getting reintegrated, and it could just be one of those things where it's like, okay, let's try this, see if it works out. If it doesn't, maybe they go their separate ways again. Maybe this works out and it pans out and they continue to move forwards with it. Great.
Maybe a certain frog organization looks at them and goes, I like that core. That core has
Certain
done great things for
frog
me.
organization.
Frog organization. They have a big
Nice.
frog. It makes
Do they?
sense. I
My
have
chair
the
just broke.
my chair just broke. Look, it's a frog. Like I it's a frog. See?
Okay. Oh, is that an organization? I always thought
That
that
is
was
a
like just a.
organize it.
I thought
Well,
that was
there's a
always just
brand organized. They had the team was there when they were making apparel. I called it an organization.
It could be. Who knows?
Listen.
Player
Well,
owned.
we know who can answer that for us, and I thought
And
I
he'll
could.
respond super quick.
Yeah,
He always
that's not
does.
if I.
Shout out to DVL for being such a fast responder. That guy is crazy.
We love it, dude.
We love
Anytime
that.
we get players who respond quickly, or anybody in
I want
general
to
that just
kiss you.
responds. Yeah, that's. I honestly, I'll have the same reaction.
Tony's kiss. Not forget Chef's kiss. No, for real.
You cooking something up, my man? Because
Yeah, I am cooking
it's
something
getting
up.
kind of steamy in here.
I'm cooking up a couple of talks about bigger, higher tier North American rosters to come later. That's what I'm cooking up
Ooh,
currently,
that's
and I'm
that's a
excited
good
to do it.
that's a good cook up.
I'm liking it.
Yeah. Honestly, that's Golden State Warriors right there. It's just like we cannot wait to see what happens because we don't know two of the five.
Yeah.
But we know that there's a lot of consistency coming out of that that core three already that are already there. We know what we're gonna get from them.
Right.
We're hoping that the rest of the team that comes with it is just as good.
Yeah. Yeah, I can agree with that. And Touchpoint. Touchpoint's a team we've seen before. It's a core we've
Ooh,
seen before for
yes.
quite some time, actually. Doing a little bit of a rebrand, no longer Touchpoint Gaming, but instead just TP, Touchpoint. And with that rebrand comes a reshuffle of players in the team. Zim and Rezion being removed for, get this, Drew the Shrew and Gurr. Now, I don't know if the chat, like we're
The
on Twitch.
chat.
I don't know if you've seen this chat. I don't know if
Yeah.
the viewers are familiar with these players, but Gurr was a player who was slated to be like ECL ready at one
Yeah.
point, dropping stupid numbers in advanced all of 2 or maybe 3 seasons ago, and then taking a break. Makes his way back as of last season towards the end, I believe, and now into this season he moves his way into this roster, and that's huge. And Drew the Shrew is a player who's been in and out of a couple of teams for quite some time now, but has the experience with so many different players. I think leadership, he's been in and out of different teams where he's been like sharing it, doing it full time, maybe once or twice, or maybe even most of the time. But now I feel like this is a team where it like makes sense that everything's starting to come together with a core that's existed for a while, hasn't split up, and then these two players make their way through. And Gurr is going to be so huge to their firepower aspect, hopefully, that this like elevates TP to where they should have been like 2 seasons ago.
Yeah, Touchpoint is always one of those teams that you look at and you go, what could have been? Because they
Right.
always had some kind of lineup that was like, it looks really good. It looks like it's going to make it to playoffs. It looks like it's going to make a deep run into playoffs. And then it just never, ever
It's
happened.
just a little less than maybe they even were anticipating as players, which
Exactly.
stinks, but
Yeah. So bringing in a known talent in Drew, who is obviously going to say like this is we're getting this. You know, I know what we need to do as a squad. I recognize the
very
needs.
cerebral player.
Yeah, a big brain. And Gurr, of course, who, like you said, was touted as being ECL ready. Not only just that, but he brings a lot of that kind of calm, uh, just level-headedness that a lot of teams sometimes
Very clutch.
they miss that. Yeah, they miss that kind of level-headedness that you really want to have in your squad
Right.
because you know you can rely on them. They're going to try and be the rock of the squad. And I think in talking to Gurr, we actually had him on for an episode. That was one of those things. That's just like we all, you know, he was the rock of his team, and that kind of a mentality that when you come forward onto joining a new squad, you can't just immediately assume that, but you can quickly grow into a spot like that, especially with joining the core with the intention of staying on for a long time.
No, yeah, you definitely can. I think so, and hopefully we get to see what we saw from him quite some time ago again, maybe in in more full force, in a little bit more longevity, because that will be a lot of fun to see this team go far and see him go far with them.
Yeah, I mean
See
that's
him
the
explode, if you will.
yeah, I mean yeah, it's I think the most upside from all these squads I've seen so far in terms of what they should be able to get in terms of potential is going to come from Touchpoint. You know, Limitless as a squad is going to be huge. They're going to be fragging, but we expect that from them. I mean, Victorum is just trying to upgrading it close to it. Touchpoint, they're the ones that I'm looking at. I'm going, okay, these are the guys that are going to see probably the most benefit from this roster move in just straight up how it's going to work for them overall.
Right. Speaking of explosions,
Oh, is it a big one?
Detonate promoted to ECL.
Big claps.
We see them move up actually and lose Arcade to that previously mentioned D2 Davenport roster, and then
Yeah.
back to the roster that we were speaking about just a few moments ago, Golden State Warriors, and they get 2 pretty big names: Ares, from I believe Strife at one point,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
then Wolfie from somewhere who I don't remember, but also a very big talent.
Wolfie comes from Early Birds, so he's been toiling away kind of for fun in advance, just kind of fragging, having a time. Like that's fuck, I don't even know. I know Jojo was on the squad at one point, but he took a break as well. That was kind of a squad that was like the remnants of the relegated Third Impact
Right.
squad that lost their org.
Yeah.
They just kind of were like, well, we still have the spot. We're still kind of good at this game, so let's just have fun. Let's just
Yeah.
not take it as seriously.
J-Dubs, Landmaz, and Nox are also a nutty core to join. Like those players
for
are
sure.
so individual, it's insane.
Yeah, and I think that's one of those things when you look at the squad is you go, okay, these are the three that we have. They're a strong group. I mean, J-Dubs lit it up with Mythic. He lit it up 2 seasons ago when we did the first.
MVP.
Yeah, he was the MVP, the advanced notice MVP of the advanced season. He didn't have quite as strong a season last time around, but at the end of the day, like he's still a good player that had good numbers. And I mean, you're adding a very experienced player now, an Eris from Strife, who had a lot of time under a good squad, had time with the Estonian import that we talked about earlier, and you're bringing on somebody in Wolfie who has had time up in ECL as well, maybe not so recently, but sometimes taking a quite little bit of step back, getting your kind of fundamentals back into you, having some fun again. That's one of those things that like just helps your mental out, and now you're able to come back into ECL, hit it hard, and it gives them a shot, right? Because of course it's just trying to survive relegation. Maybe they hope to not be in the relegation fight. Maybe they hope to be in that kind of stay bit. Maybe they're just trying to avoid auto relegation, because that's the big one, I guess, is avoid the auto relegation.
Yeah, and this team doesn't need fraggers. Like, I'm not going to lie, Ares is not a fragger. He's not a player who's going to throw himself into this roster and expect to do sick. He's not going to be your highest performer. He's going to be the player that joins you and, again, keeps you on the ground. He's going to be making sure that you're doing what you need to do across the map to make sure the kills that you get are actually worth their while. which is what you need in a team like this with so many players who can be let off their leash, can be given free reign, and being like, I'm going to make a play. I'm going to go for an entry. I'm going to double frag on this bomb site on an exit. Like, it's great to have those three. But then Wolfie, again, slightly experienced player with pretty good pedigree and background, making his way into this team, can frag. He can be a player and a difference maker as opposed to maybe Arcade, who wasn't the most experienced at this level at being that sort of a player consistently against the best teams in the season. Wolfie has been there in and out multiple times before, as far as I'm aware now. So he's gotten that kind of he's got that what's that called?
Veteran
He's
veteran
that
leadership.
veteran.
Yeah,
He's got
there
that
you go.
veteran in him because he's been in 4 seasons of ECL, right? Or ECL, yeah. Like,
Yeah,
it's great
ECL.
to have a player like that on your team. And I think that not only having Wolfie, who can be a really sick fragger consistently, with the other three who have already proved that they can put it on paper, and then Aries, not Aries, who can like gel you. That's actually interesting, because that's the thing that I'm noticing every team that we've talked about so far, for the most part, has been doing, is taking somebody who can call very well with the experience, with the name power, and then taking a player as a fifth who can be the difference maker alongside three players who have already had and shown that potential together. And
I mean,
let's
that
see if it works,
raises
because
yeah, I mean, that raises a question. Are all these teams going, oh, we're three high touting fraggers. We just don't feel like the system works. So we're going to go find a new IGL and someone who will
possibly.
try and put us together. I I worry if that's the scenario that every team is going through. I mean,
Sounds
it's a
good to me
great day.
personally,
It
because
I
it could
guess
be
it
North
looks great.
America being like, oh, let's all disband as 5 and leave together, or let's blow up the team and get rid of 3 players, or let's, like, that kind of thing
Let's
is
hope
like,
this works. I mean, if it makes every team stronger, who fucking cares, right? It worked. But I don't know.
I'd say that
That
this is an
also worries
all-around
me.
improvement in mentality, at least,
Yeah,
as opposed to
I
previous
think that's a
seasons.
really good way to look at it. Is just everybody's kind of improving their mentality and looking, listen, our structure isn't quite where we want it to be, so let's look at it from a different angle with a new IGL, and we'll bring in somebody to try and keep the team together a lot better than what we've currently had, which by all means is great. We want longer lasting
Yeah.
rosters. We having this episode be really long is kind of our own making, but also like it's a symptom of NA.
It's
So
like
that's kind of where we sit.
It's like having a beach house, and then with that beach house, you're like, it looks nice, but it needs a little bit more something snazzy. And then
Yeah.
the new fragging fifth is the new deck, the new front porch. Oh, that looks great. But then it's like, ooh, like, what if it starts to flood? We need a better foundation. And you raise up your house, and the floor is risen, and everything looks pretty, and that's your in-game leader. That's the
There
in-game
you
leader,
go.
the foundation that you just lifted your beach house with. So now your beach house looks good, and it has a solid
Yeah.
foundation. So now it's just the upkeep.
I got yeah. That's you know what that really works well. I was a little skeptical with the analogy, but
Pretty good, huh?
I'm there. I'm there. Speaking of being there, Northern Forces are also getting promoted. That is Freshy, JT Mythic, Nice, Florence, and Cryptic. So
I just realized I've been bouncing my monitor with my knee just for like a solid last like 30 minutes. So I'm gonna not do that
you're
anymore.
fine. You're fine. I mean, speaking of being fine, are Northern Forces fine?
I'd like to think so, considering that they're one of the few teams that haven't made more than 2 changes to their team. They've only brought in 1 player. It's JT for who now? I forgot.
It was
Sluggy.
Sluggy. Yeah.
Yeah, who makes his way back, and he actually posted on Twitter earlier today saying something along the lines of that he saw it coming, but wished that he had gotten the message sooner because he had turned down teams. So that's interesting, because
That's
maybe
NA.
Sluggy makes his way out quick, maybe not.
Yeah.
Maybe he makes his way back into the roster somehow, but not likely, seeing as how that message didn't seem like it ended on very good terms. But if that is going to be the case, then JT is quite potentially the player that you would want mentality-wise. He'll probably bring a lot more to the table in terms of keeping a level head in and out of game, seeing as, like I said, he said it wasn't something out of the blue and he wasn't playing poorly.
Yeah. I mean, just over the last season, Sluggy has had his kind of issues in
Ups
terms
and
of
downs, yeah.
is and not even just like in server, like the stuff that happens kind of
His
around
personal life,
his personal life is one of and that's a thing that will affect
perhaps.
everybody. Um but that's one of those things you look at and you go, okay, if you saw it coming, maybe you
Right.
know there's a good reason for it. It's not
Yeah.
just kind of an out of the blue thing, which at the end of the day is all right, and that'll happen. As for the rest of the squad, again, this is one of those things. They just need to survive,
Yeah.
not get auto relegated,
They're a
and
good
then
team.
we can look at it from there. If they're a good team, if they're going to be in, because they consistently make playoffs in advance, that's
Yeah.
something you got to look at. And you go, okay, that's the point where we're looking at now. can an advanced playoff team stay in ECL? And
Right.
that's where I don't know always, because some of those teams make it in and it's like great, they're going to make a run and all this, and then they get to relegation and they just get flattened, and
Right.
it's one of those things. But I'm hopeful for Northern Forces when we see them in the next little bit here.
Yeah, I'd like to see this team do well. I mean, I'd like to see every team do well, like we say, but like it kind of means something different every time that I say it, at least. Like I want to see this team do well because I think that they have the pieces of players who are very individually talented and seem to mesh together well enough as personalities to make it work consistently. And JT not being the individual that Sluggy was, but being maybe able to slot into this team and offer them something different in the game and out of the game might be enough to raise the level of each of them by just virtue of being comfortable around their teammates a little bit more consistently, and maybe that leads to them just having a better time playing the game, wanting to play it more, and then playing better when they do.
Yeah.
Which I mean is like at the end of the day all you can ask for any team in general, because making better of the sum of your parts is at the end of the day, honestly, in my opinion, what Counter Strike is literally all about. Is being better than the sum of your parts and proving that we are the team that will stay for maybe a little longer than you thought. I mean, like for example, like at least in terms of recent history, like Movistar Riders. That's a team that came together a little bit ago, and Mopaz and Alex have been playing together for a dog's age with deaths being in and out, and they make this team work, and they do it on land consistently enough to now where it's like, okay, maybe they did something crazy once. Okay, maybe they did something crazy again. How long do they stay in for? Like they've been together for long enough to where it's like, okay, the Virtus Pro mentality even. Like once you find 5 players, or at least even like 4 or 3 that you're comfortable with, it's like here's where we should be. Here's where we are because we enjoy playing with each other and enjoy improving and getting better at the game together and not individually.
Yeah. And I
But
mean,
it's really
that's kind of where it is, you know. That's we'll see. We'll wait and see. Speaking of one spot left, on that Northern Forces roster where JT filled in, we have one final spot to go. On those teams getting promoted to ECL, and this one's a bit of a toss-up. And by toss-up, I mean they're fighting for it. They're going to be playing for it. It's going to be Davenport D1 going up against Unjustified. So that's Korn, Kojimo, Spec, and newly put in Switcher,
switcher,
Switcher. There's an ACH there.
Estonian
Switcher.
switcher.
Yeah, there you go. The Estonian talents, man. They're making their way
They're
into an
everywhere.
A, and they're going up against Unjustified, who've had a few of their own roster switches. Cyrix, JS Feltner, Just Too Easy, Jermaine, and Tensky coming in again. Tensky was replacing for sure Hitman, I think, on that.
Yeah, that's a team that's like dangerous in the sense
Yeah.
that it's got like from last season. No offense to the players again. I'm sure they'll be the first to tell you they didn't have the greatest individual seasons. You slot in Jermaine and Tensky for players who were a little lower on your scoreboard than maybe even they would have liked. That's crazy in terms of firepower if they can hold themselves together individually, because those players, all 5, have the potential to take over a game, in my opinion, on their own.
Oh
Like we
yeah.
talk about Cyrix all the time, and then we talk about those other 2 players that have been staying, JS Feltner and Just Too Easy, every now and then. But now with all 5 of these players being game-changing members of the squad, whether they be temporary trials, whatever it may be, that is crazy if they manage to pull that together.
Yeah, and I mean Tensky is one of the, just from my knowledge of him, Tensky is one of those guys that can really, when he goes off, that is, that's where he shines. Is just he'll hit an extreme hot streak and that's what he hits. And he still of course has that consistent lower ceiling where he's still going to put up numbers. It just might not be what you would expect if you saw him like actually truly just bust the wall. He's hit it running and he's just going to keep going. So
I do hope to see Bebo bounce back, though.
yeah, I mean that's one of the players that's kind of been left out by all this because Bebo was moved to the D2 team. That was to make space for Switcher on this D1 Davenport squad. And I guess that's kind of weird. Like you think about it, and it's like Bebo has spent so long on the D1 team. You kind of wish he at least had somewhat of a chance in
Six
ECL
seasons?
before.
This is like this
Yeah,
sixth season it would have been? That's
and
crazy.
like Pug is the only other person I can think of that has been on the squad as long as him. So that's one of those things. I don't know if that rubs me the wrong way in terms of you know
Individually,
statistically.
he struggled, Bebo, for all those
Yeah,
seasons. So I mean, like it's he might have even been their in-game leader, and I got him mixed up with Hitman. But either way, it's sad to say that's just how the cookie crumbles sometimes when you continue to move up that high, and one of your players just isn't quite following you in the way that you had hoped.
yeah, and I mean you look at that and you go, you wish you could get at least one game in ECL. Maybe that's something that happens eventually when if D2 ever qualify for ECL. But
You're about to say the
that's
F
a
word again,
pipe
dude?
dream. I'm very F word friendly tonight.
You're very effing out. You're
Um,
effing out right now.
I'm effing out. No, I don't know. There's no hate in saying any of this. It's
No.
just one of those things of I wish I could see. That's like a pipe dream, your favorite
Yeah.
player who you play soccer with. It's like, man, I would love to see you in the MLS or something. I don't know. That's a little
Right.
too high of a league for me. But
It's like that one
um,
player you're waiting to get poached to like a higher team in Counter Strike. You're like, come on, I just want to.
yeah,
You're right there.
get up there. I mean, yeah, that's what a segue. What a segue, because that's really where
There
it
we
is.
go.
We don't know what's going to happen with Davenport Unjustified. The match is tomorrow. That's going to be Thursday. We're recording this on the Wednesday. We'll hopefully have it out before the match.
That'd
That's
be
something
cool.
we're going to strive for. Yeah, I'm really hoping for that. But speaking of poached, there are teams that had to make space for these guys to get promoted, and two interesting names coming through. The first one, it's a big name. This is a scary almost. Godsent basically got poached by OO Nation, which as a team and as a brand, I still have no clue what the hell is going on there.
With OO Nation?
Yeah, I have no clue.
Like, what do you mean as a brand?
Like they keep changing their logo, they keep changing the style. Like
Keep changing the roster.
They keep changing the roster. Yeah, like it's
every
just
3 months. It's a new 3 players and a
yeah.
new logo. Quite literally, it feels like that.
Yeah, it's so weird. So that's Godsent, just kind of home sent, I guess.
Bye bye.
Bye.
More like airlifted.
Airlift. That's
Like,
pretty
bro,
good. Yeah.
They're gone.
Welcome.
God literally took them and ascended them.
Sent them.
Like, he sent them up. Well,
and
depending on how you look at it, maybe sideways. I think up.
I hope sideways to upwards. I hope it's not a downwards trend.
No,
that'd
I
be
certainly
poor.
hope not.
The last one to get to get disbanded, I guess. Destroyed, yeah. ECL, the rigors of ECL. No, it's axolotls. Poyo and Jermaine leave, of course. Jermaine going on to that Unjustified squad. Poyo, I think, is taking a step back. I haven't seen him join any squad yet. I kind of
he's just hanging out, playing in like lands and things.
And then the other part of that squad was Constantine Tender. We get to talk about them in a little bit here, but they're also gone. That left Elk as the sole man left on the squad, and as a result, there is not enough people for a core to be formed, which means the spot is essentially gone. It's deleted.
Kind of just going their separate ways. Like, I guess they just thought the team ran its course. I mean, it's clearly to see that like some of the players have some sort of a connection to one another. Obviously, like we said, Constantine Tender we have to talk about later. Jermaine seemingly had an offer he couldn't really refuse. It was a really good one to take if that was already predetermined. And Polo, like, whatever you need to do, man. Like, if this team wasn't for you, if you need to take a step back personally, if you think you need to break, go for it. Like, nobody's here to tell you otherwise.
Exactly. But that's really it for ECL, at least mainly for ECL. There's a few smaller things kind of coming through. I think we can kind of hit these rapid fire.
To talk about these. These are like my big boys.
Oh no! Why did you saved the best for last? I guess.
Let's start with the bottom one then. Let's start with the bottom one.
Okay, so this is gonna kind of be we're gonna go a little bit rapid fire here. So it is Mythic removing Eric, I believe, for college. He's going to college, so they in his stead they pick up a Canadian. What Flom said was gonna make them world beaters in use. And I guess I can speak on this one just a little bit more, just because Canadian. I know Hughes a bit. Yeah, Canadian. I met him at ETS LAN in Montreal when I went with a few of the FECS teams. That was so much fun, by the way. So much fun. But
it's awesome.
Really, really nice guy. And there's a 5K
Seems
clip.
Funny.
Yeah. He's got some good jokes.
Once or twice.
Yeah, he's a great man. And you know what? He's funny, and he's got the skill to match it. I mean, just the other day he got an ace in FPL.
I saw
that 5 Deagle headshot ace.
That was
like
crazy
insane. So Mythic is just looking for a young fragger to pick up, bring in, and put some experience into them with that. That core of now it's Cooper, Freakazoid, and Flom. Which always was like, why do they have 2 oppers? But I get it now. It just works.
Cooper is a sick rifler, that is why.
Yeah,
Cooper
it doesn't even matter, right?
Cooper's so good. Not that Flom isn't good with a rifle, but like if I had to pick one of the two, it would definitely be Cooper.
Yeah. So that's Mythic.
Oh, my
Team
camera,
Liquid.
Help me. Help. oh, dude, you like that? That magic wipe?
We got a little bit of wipe there. There we go.
Little magic wipe for us.
As for Team Liquid, we got an unknown. I mean, we look at the Blast Pro, their roster coming forward. They're keeping Yakinder on, which is so good, so needed. So much praise has been hyped has been hefted onto Ykinder joining that squad, even from the players. It feels like there's a reinvigoration there. So that's something to keep an eye out for. There's still other
If they
potential
get it,
options.
if they
maybe.
actually lock him
Yeah,
down.
if they get to keep him, because there's still some contract hell with VP.
Oh, that's it.
That's it. Are you gonna say anything? I thought you had.
I was just gonna say who. I mean, like, who do they get?
Yeah.
If they can't get him, is my question, because like, there's okay. Well, first off, EG is done with their roster moves. They've set themselves. Hex-T is no longer an option. Automatic,
Yeah.
more than likely not going to be an option. Breeze not going to be an option. Then we move on to the active squad of the CD team that had just lost Klasia for Stanislaw. They now lose Hex-T to the main roster and have to fill in a spot from whether it be a lower team or take from PA if they want to make the switch. And then we move over down to PA. Probably not going to get Bentley. Don't need an in-game leader. Don't need an Opera and Ponalone. Don't need a support player very much in DJ. They
Yeah.
could actually potentially use a player like Janji should he be able to fit into the roster in terms of attitude, personality, all the good things that NACS sucks at.
Yeah.
But should he be good enough in all of those categories now at this point in his career, which he very well may be, that would be something pretty interesting. I think Janji is probably the one player you could like throw a shout at in NA at like a high enough level to where it makes sense.
To
Other
move
than
to Liquid,
that-
sorry.
Yeah, to Liquid.
Yeah.
It fills a similar role that Ykinder is playing for them right now and moving a couple of other players over just slightly to make work.
Yeah.
If not, I think Viz is very, very talented and has a lot of Counter-Strike left in him. I just don't know if he's ready for that big of a jump, in my opinion. And other than that, you're looking at NA and saying, okay, over to EU, I guess, because Ykinder is by far your best option here. And if you can't lock down him, they're very few and far in between in NA for players near that caliber.
Yeah, it's one of those things where you look at Team Liquid and you go, okay, so they picked up OC. OC was great. OC was the talent we needed to just drop in and go, we're good to go. He was ready to go into Pro League, and he's shining. Aside from that complexity squad and the mainstays on EG, you don't really have anybody who's looking ready yet. There's not
like,
really that kind of filler team yet.
Floppy, but he just got a new Opera on his team, so you're not going to be able to get him even if you wanted.
And he wasn't looking particularly great in the whole squad, the whole complexity squad.
I'd still take him as the shiniest turd.
No,
on the pile.
I definitely would. You can't. You already had Grim. That didn't work. You can't go back to Grim. You don't need an IGL, so you don't need Why am I blank? JT. Sorry, I blanked on his name.
Fang could work.
Fang,
not going to be able to lock him down. Also hasn't been looking great.
And you honestly have Napf to kind of fill those positions that Fang is doing for complexity. Floppy is the one that I'd look at and say, okay, he's the one, I guess, if you're targeting anybody. But again, they just went through a roster change, or they just went through a roster change. That's what they have to look forward to right now.
What would be nuts though?
Yeah.
What would be absolutely nuts, which will not happen, is if Twist decided he got all of his eggs hatched in FaZe, and he was like, I got a major now, so I kind of want to go back to NA. Let me go chill there. That would be so interesting and cool to see that same team with Liquid, but OC instead of Stewie. What a weird thing that would be to see.
Yeah,
I think it'd be kind of cool. Like I think it'd be awesome, but
yeah, and I mean in a weird way it would work because now you have that solid op. You're not relying on Nitro to pick up the op.
Twist found his form again. The reason why he got removed in the first place was that he was starting to become a little lackluster.
There you go. So that's pipe dream after pipe dream there.
But I wouldn't. If I were Twist, I would chill with my EU boys. This is my home.
Yeah,
this is my home now.
I have a major here. I have trophies here. I have my best friend in Rops here. Yeah.
They're so cool, that team. Like, if I was, like, I feel like if I were to live in Europe, I would want to be on FaZe because those players are just people who are like, okay, I want to go hang out with Rain, Rops, Kerrigan, and Brokey. Like,
why would gonna go have fun?
Yeah.
So
bring Olaf along. Why not?
Bring Olaf. Yeah. I think if you look at Team Liquid, you have to say they need, if they're looking NA, they don't really have much in the way of options unless you're gonna you're jumping Floppy from complexity, or you're gonna try and grab somebody from Evil Geniuses, which just doesn't make sense at this point. It doesn't look like EG or complexity are willing to give up those players for a reasonable cost, which is kind of where you look at and go, it's not worth it. Yeah. Especially if it's untested players that have been in a downturn. That's not what you need. So Team Liquid Ykinder is kind of their best option right now in terms of familiarity. But otherwise, they're going to have to kind of stick with EU, stick with somebody who is in their peak. and can support the roster. You can't.
Yeah.
It's not a rebuild. It's not a retool. It is a we're here to win now kind of mentality.
Yeah, and like there's so much going on in Europe right now that they could very well swing a player that's good enough to be above the level of North America, albeit below the level of Yakindar. I mean, that's entirely feasible, but it's kind of just you gotta hope at that point.
It's one of those things.
I would
All
even
right.
talk to Mouse NXT about Xertion if I could
That's
get a
one of
Yakindar.
those things as well as the academy teams.
I think it'd be
Do you
really
look at
cool.
those academy players and go, "We're ready to push them up"? Because OC was good. OC was there for it, right? He was ready to go from Extra Salt.
The
So
academy team, extra salt.
no, I mean they
I'm
were the
kidding.
best NA academy team. That's why Complexity picked them up
They
after
were
OC
an
left.
academy team.
They they felt like they felt like an academy team.
Stop
They're
it.
young enough. They're young. That's the whole thing,
Stop.
right?
I guess. They've been
I don't
playing
know.
for a long time, though, to be fair.
Yeah, well, most players are. You're not picking up. I don't know. You're not picking up a Pone alone. I don't think
Like,
that's kind of
Xertion
where it
came out of
sits.
nowhere. That homie is just like, here I am on Mouse NXT now.
Yeah,
I
but
exist all of a
that's
sudden.
one of those things with
And I'm
EU though.
and I'm
Just
great.
yeah, EU. There's going to be a diamond and open, and just nobody knows about them because there's so much talent. Like even from the advanced level up,
Right.
it's ridiculous. Anyways, moving forward, we got to keep going here.
Sorry.
Bad news bears. They recently announced the stepping down of a lot of people. They
Mad
lost
Cow and
their
Swan and
yeah.
Spongy and Shake.
Yes. So Mad Cow has moved on to EG. He's going to be
Yeah.
coaching over there. Swan was let go of the roster. He just didn't fit. And then after a few more weeks, Spongy and Shake, the two pillars of Bad News Bears, Spongy, who's been
The
there
OGs.
since the start, yeah, and then Shake was quick to join him. Those guys quickly took a step down. They've been going at it for so long without an org. I believe they've got somebody helping them in the background in terms of monetarily stuff, but they're just
That's
kind of a
cool.
silent partner. But yeah, they're taking a small break here, and they're gonna say we're coming back. We want to come back fresh and ready to really hit this hard. I think a big reason for that was just how tough going through ECL relegation, realizing we didn't make playoffs. That's
Yeah.
our goals were not met. We're not there yet. And
I
even
think it's
with that big,
crazy.
sorry,
So, no, you go.
and it's one of those things they weren't expecting that big rebuild. Like that was one thing that Shake said is they just kept rebuilding. He
Yeah.
needs that break to come back and go, we're ready to go.
Yeah. He's built these teams up and made these players who have looked so very good under him look so very good, and they haven't looked as good since. So that's where I'm like, I kind of want to see him with a team of 5 players that I trust him with at a level above the level that Bad News Bears was at last season, but maybe not necessarily as high as getting back Grim and Junior. But if that's what it took, I would give him back Junior. I think that Junior is deserving of a level that Shake Zula can provide to him. Grim, a player in current complexity that I actually would probably move down, seeing as he really hasn't shown me a consistent level of form that he has in previous rosters and didn't live up to the promise that he had dropped out of Liquid and been that star player that Complexity had set him up to be. I mean, we've seen little glimpses, we've seen matches here and there where he has been that player, but it needs to be a little bit more. It needs to be a little bit more off in as well. And like Sheikh Zula is an in-game leader who I would put with those 2 players and expect them to be top ECL level, bottom level, mid-level Premier or EPL.
Yeah.
And
So
also, pause real quick. Just I'm sorry to say, they
no,
were
go
going to
for it.
get Malbs. Supposedly, they were trying to get Malbs or play with Malbs. Like, I think what's happening right now is that Spongy and Shake are waiting out the contracts of Malb and Junior, and they're going to come back with that team later next season or the season after. That's my current prediction. But my also question is, can Junior and Malbs wait that long before being like, okay, gonna join another team now?
And can the Bad News Bears roster, like that roster, because there's a roster to replace them? Can that roster hold the ECL spot?
Right.
That's a huge question mark itself. Because
Never
I mean,
mind. Team 1 is currently negotiating Malbs' return.
there you go.
No.
So I guess to look at this all then, Consti Tender, we talked about Consti and Tender earlier. They were off Axolotls. This is why they are joining Pluto and Momo, as well as Woohoo and Philo coming in as a coach. Yeah. So that's going to be Bad News Bears, and as a result, because they need to keep some kind of a core, Swan is going to be sending in for the first 4 matches. So good on him. Coming back at least to help them out with the initial, and that
Right.
that just kind of that puts Bad News Bears into the holding pattern they're in right now. Hopefully, we'll see good things from that roster as they come back.
Right.
And who knows? Like you said, I want to see Shake in a better position with
Yeah.
with some actual funding behind him, an actual team that he's going to be able to have and hold together.
Yeah.
Because when you get that kind of a stability, the sky's the limit.
Right.
Speaking of stability, somebody ain't looking so stable. Pain Gaming, Nekiz and Nithon were removed, and
Yeah.
there has been no replacement for them yet.
Yeah, that's one that kind of puzzles me a little bit here because Henny is moving on to MIBR reportedly. I didn't add that, so I'll just say it really quickly. Not really much to note about other than the fact that MIBR are down in Opper, losing a player currently in Cello going into Imperial, and replacing it with an Opper now, probably filling out roles a lot better and allowing Burnzan or whatever his name is to be way more impactful on the server, which I think is going to be really good. But with Try in 0-0, Nithon being benched, NQZ being signed by 9Z, and Henny going to MIBR, what do they do for an Opper? And why is Nithon being benched is my question on top of that, because he was fantastic. He's been nothing but good for this team as far as I'm aware. And Neck is, I read his tweet longer or whatever it was. It makes sense as to why he doesn't feel like he belongs to this team anymore. But like Hard Zhao and Big Azera are a great starting two. Nithon was a great AWP player for them. PKL has been leading them very well as well. It was like a one-player move I was anticipating and being like, okay, yeah, sure, great, looks good to me. But now
The
it's like,
classic Brazilian.
okay, kind of weird. Now what?
Now what? And I
If they
guess
get
that's
like,
where you leave it.
what do they get? What do they get? I don't know. That's where you
Who
leave
knows?
it.
They'll pull up a random Brazilian and they'll be good again. That's
Yeah,
what happened to Team One. That's what consistently happens with Brazilian teams.
yeah.
Anyways, speaking of 1-for-1s,
For one,
Clasia was removed from Evil Genius's the Carpe Diem part of that roster,
yes,
and reportedly Stanislaw is taking his place. I don't think that's
yes.
officially declared
Yeah,
yet,
I guess not. I
but
guess
it's
not.
pretty much the writings on the wall for that.
Clashia is officially gone. That
Yeah,
much is done.
Clasia is officially gone. It is just that kind of we're waiting for
Yep.
an official thing from Stanislaw. I see it happening. I mean,
Yeah.
you look at what Stanislaw brings. He's been with EG before. There's a lot to look at there, and that's kind of where you move forward from there.
Yeah, he'd be taking over the in-game leader role from Walco, allowing him to play a little bit more freely. Stanislaw also playing very well, in my opinion, relative to the pieces that he had in his last team in ECL. And now Hex T being gone is kind of huge, actually, because the replacement's got to be really, really good individually. Because they're already picking up a player who's not going to be bringing a whole lot to the table individually, as is. Your Opper is having a little bit of trouble finding the impact that he would like at a higher level, and the rest of the two players are good enough. But like I said, with Classy gone, being one of their better fraggers, having a little bit of an attitude issue or something like that, a
Yeah,
personality clash, something along those lines, and then losing Hex T to the main roster, things get a little scary. Like realistically, uh, being under the EG contract as long as he is, and he's not released entirely, Rush would be a really good pick for that level if he's willing to go down there, and I would give it a shout. And
I would.
Stanislaw already has worked with Rush to very good success. So
And I mean that's one of those things you look at and you say you'd be like, okay, we're bringing in Stanislaw, Rush or Stan. Can you go talk to Rush about
go
all
talk to
this?
him.
Go talk to him, man. You played with him on Optic all those years ago. Just tell him, listen, man, we're gonna beat up these kids. We're gonna get our money,
Yeah.
and we're gonna get out of here.
Get that
But
sweet cash. Rush
get
can
that
get
sweet
his
cash.
confidence back a little bit.
Have fun. You could just
Have
have fun
fun.
beating up on the new talent.
Yeah, do it.
Speaking of new talent, I guess we got to move to the EG main roster now.
Yes.
We talked about it a little bit.
Briefly.
Stewie2K has moved on to a content creator role. He's going to be kind of splitting his time between CS and Valorant. I think this is kind of the natural end for him. He was there seemed to be kind of struggling on Liquid, so
He said he'd
made
get
the
that
move.
last laugh, bro.
Yeah, it's there. And Rush has been kind of benched. He's in a bit of no man's land. And I don't know what Rush did. I feel bad because Rush was looking to have a stronger comeback. He looked all right when he was with Complexity. It's one of those things.
He
Of
did
just
look
like,
all right when he was with Complexity. I'll give you that.
it's
He
one
looked
of
all
those
right.
things, you know. But
He
yeah,
should have looked a lot better in this team relative to the level that he was showing us in Complexity,
Yeah,
because he looks
there you
way
go.
worse in this team at a lower level than he did at an okay level in Complexity, looking okay.
Yeah, so that's one of those things I guess you look at and you go, is it just a systemic thing with the main roster on EG? Because nobody looked good on EG on the main roster.
I
Like
think
this
Automatic
roster,
looked good.
maybe
I
he looked
think
good,
Automatic looked good.
but I don't know. The squad's results didn't really show
No,
that
no,
at
yeah,
all, and
awful.
it was horrible. Who are they bringing in to replace them? It is Neelan. I believe he's from
K23.
Kyrgyzstan.
Kazakhstan?
Yeah, Kazakhstan. There you go, Kyrgyzstan. He's from Kazakhstan, so that's something. And of course, they had that name moved up.
I come to lead.
Yeah. And then we also have Hex coming in from that Carpe Diem EG roster, which
Right.
big ups to him. It's well deserved. There's been a few players
I've been talking
throughout
about
that
him
Carpe
forever.
Diem. There's a few players even within that roster itself, like Carpe Diem. You look at them and you go, okay, they have been deserving of this move up for a while.
Yeah, I don't know.
Now it's finally time to let's give him a chance. Let's give him a chance.
I say only Hext has been deserving of a move up for all this time, personally. I've been waiting for this guy to get the call up for so long. But, I mean, better late than never, I guess. And Neelan is an in-game leader who's been playing at the Tier 2, top Tier 3, bottom Tier 2 level in Europe for a long time now, for K23, sharing the in-game leading role with the Dren for a little while before he got removed, and now taking it on a full time. Making the move to NA, very bold, but I'd like to see him do a lot for this team, because having a little bit of that experience in a team of players who is like, okay, Automatic is experienced, Breeze is experienced, Cirque is still young but experienced, and Hext knows jack shit about the top level of CS. This is going to be great, hopefully, because now we've got everything behind us, including a coach in Vorberg, previously of the Copenhagen Flames roster, being like a shared owner. That's going to be another piece, that just a more European lifestyle into your roster without totally imbalancing the shift. And it's worth noting just very briefly that Masuda was supposed to be in this team as opposed to Hext, but as far as I'm aware, that would have ruined their place in the majors as a full North American.
Yeah, they were going to be looking at loopholes and stuff, and they're like, we do not want to go up against. Yeah, we're not fucking with Valve. That's not something that we're going to try and attack. So I mean that's really it for the NA moves. We've gone quite a long time.
We do, but it's okay. First episode back. We just want to get our arms moving a little bit.
It takes a little bit of time for us to warm up, and then we're kind of in it. I guess this is the big one now. Team Eclectiq. You might not have heard of this team before, but after probably a few days on Twitter, you'll probably have heard from them.
Right.
This is a new org that's taking this team over, because I believe a lot of these players have been under the same kind of umbrella for a while. Mainly the one who you'll talk about a lot about. But yeah, take it away, Tony. This is all you.
Yeah, it's kind of short and sweet. I don't have a whole lot of inside information to go behind this. I only have very little to just talk about very briefly, considering, like I said, I don't have very much inside info to give you a straight up answer. But Cajun, previously of this roster, previously of this roster, had been released by the hand of TruePain, as far as I'm aware. Having been the in-game leader, he seemed to be a little upset, taking it to Twitter, talking about all the achievements that they had put together, all the things that he had done for the team, and he had made a very big spectacle of the fact that he had been removed of the team for better or worse, but seemingly for the better, because everybody in the community had taken his side on the matter and talked about it in a light that had actually exposed previous member TruePain for being a little bit perhaps sneaky. I don't know, like making a decision on his own, not really consulting the team. I'm not sure how it exactly played out, but I mean, understandably so, with this player being removed and then being added immediately back after being kicked after a day, and TruePain being released. Clearly there was something going on behind the scenes that was a little more slimy than we may have any sort of info for. But like, again, the whole community rallies around him. His own team, having known about this, now rallies around him, brings him back. TruePain's gone, and TruePain posts to Twitter saying there's two sides to every story or something like that. But
yeah,
like that's that may be true. That may be true that there are two sides to every story, but clearly more people have more good things to say about one side of the story than the other, because only anyone has spoken up about Cajun's side. So
I'm just here to support the death of Auto Director.
I hope Auto Director die.
I hope Auto Director dies.
Or I hope it dies and then is resurrected on the third day and is great.
It comes back better than ever. Hopefully, sometime soon. Yeah. But honestly, that's kind of where it sits. We don't know. We'll hopefully get some more information. That's it. That's it.
We did it. We're back.
We did it. We're back. Thank you very much, everybody, for sticking around and watching the whole thing. We went through such an amount. Expect these to come out every 2 weeks. We'll try and figure that all out in the next little bit here. We've got a schedule set. We've got the time to do it, so that's what we're gonna do.
Yes.
Big shout out to everybody who has been very supportive of us in the last season. Of course, hopefully you're back watching these. We love making them, so we're gonna continue to do that. Shout out to JK, the producer. You're not gonna hear or see him ever unless he suddenly brings himself up on the screen someday. But he is our producer, amazing man himself. And shout out to all of LCA for allowing us to do this, and
shout
of course giving their time. Yeah, shout out to you for giving us your time.
Where's my camera? shout out to you.
Kiss the camera. Kiss the cook. There. Oh, he's coming in. Oh, there's a big smooch. Perfect. All right, that is where we're gonna end it for now. So I hope you had a good listen, and we will hopefully catch you in the next one in 2 weeks. Bye for now.
See you guys.